Hello everyone, welcome to our live Q&A event, Break the Cage, Rescuing Armenia's Bears. I'm Liz from International Animal Rescue, and I'm with, virtually at least, Alan Knight, Chief Executive of International Animal Rescue, and Ruben Khachatryan, excuse me, I gave it a go, founder and CEO of FPWC, the Foundation for the Preservation of Wildlife and Cultural Assets. Just to explain what's going to happen in the next hour, firstly, Alan is going to tell us briefly about the background to our Great Bear Rescue Project in Armenia and how IAR came to be involved. He'll also describe our current Break the Cage campaign, which focuses specifically on the issue of bear poaching in Armenia, which leads to many of these poor bears ending up behind bars. And then Ruben is going to tell us more about he and his team actually go about rescuing bears in Armenia, which is quite some task. And he'll also talk about life for the rescued bears at the beautiful sanctuary in the mountains and the special care they need to help them recover from the trauma of spending so many years in captivity. Just to add, before we move on, that a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to go on a trip to Armenia with IAR, and I saw the project for myself, and I even witnessed a bear rescue. I saw the rescue of two bears, Max and Minnie, who were being kept at a bus depot, and I watched their journey to a better, happier life at the sanctuary when they were rescued. And I must say, it was an absolute privilege to see our team on the ground in action and see our supporters' donations making such an incredible difference to the lives of the two suffering bears. So please, throughout the hour, will you add your questions for Alan and Ruben to the chat box? And we'll aim to kick off the Q&A in about half an hour. But first of all, it's over to you, Alan.
Thank you very much indeed, Liz, and hello to everybody, and thank you so much for watching this evening, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. We're going to go over to the slides now, Lucy, I hope. Thank you very much. So amazingly, we go back to 2016, it seems like yesterday, when we very first started the work in Armenia, and we were alerted to a collection of animals that were being kept by an oligarch who'd apparently gone bust and couldn't afford to feed the animals. So these two lovely people here were just local people who originally were carers for the animals, but were not being paid. And they were really scrounging food like fish from the fish market and bringing it back and actually feeding the bears, which was an extraordinary effort. And we're really grateful to them for doing it. Next slide. And the poor old lions were, a mother and two cubs were actually in this rotten, rusting old trailer. And we decided that we had to be involved to do something with them. So very quickly, we got involved with FPWC, Ruben and his team. And they very, very efficiently moved those animals. Next slide. And in fact, what they did is literally take up the containers that they were in, and they moved them to a wildlife rescue center, which they were setting up in the mountains outside of Yerevan. And very quickly, we started to discuss what we could do with those lions. The original plan was to bring them back to the UK and put them in a small zoo in Wales. But as we got to know the people involved in this project, and it became obvious that Ruben was actually the director of the zoo in Yerevan, and he told me of a plan to build a new enclosure and complete exhibition of lions in the zoo. And as Ruben knows, I'm not the best fan of a zoo, so he did very well to convince me that this was the right thing. But initially, we had to keep them in a place up in the mountains. So next slide. So Ruben and his team very, very quickly and on budget and on time produced this little enclosure with some night dens behind it. And this was the start of the project that we now have. Next slide. And it was a very nice little enclosure. Obviously, the lions had to spend quite a lot of time there. And basically, about a year And then finally, the large enclosure within Yerevan Zoo was finished, and we were able to move the lions over there. And that left this empty cage, which I'd already previously agreed with Ruben would actually be used for wildlife rescue. And we decided to look at, different animals that needed rescuing in Armenia. And the first thing that Ruben told me was that there were probably about 70 or 80 bears that needed rescuing. Next slide. And that's the start of the Great Bear Rescue, which was a campaign that we started to literally rescue every bear off the streets of Armenia. Next one. And poor old bears were living in really bad cages. This was at a restaurant in a river, by a river in Yerevan. You can see the state of the cage. It's just reinforcing bars, roughly welded together. And these poor old bears were sitting in there, not having a very good time at all. Next. And you can see here on the right-hand side is the restaurant with this fast-flowing river going through it. And on the left-hand side is the actual bears in the cage. And actually the cage went down into the river. And Ruben was explaining to me that at least twice in his memory, this river has flooded and the water has risen very high in the cage, which meant that the bears had to be taken out to stop them drowning. So this was very, very stressful for the animals. And we just decided that we had to do something about it. So we got a team together. Next slide. This just shows the irony of the whole thing. These are two people having their lunch looking over at the bears suffering, which we just felt was an awful thing to do. And basically, it had to stop. So we managed to negotiate with the owner and she agreed that we could take those bears. So we moved a team in and we actually anesthetized the bears, got them into cages and moved them by lorry up to the center that you've just seen on the slide before. Next. And there they are before they came out. Next slide. And the next one. And funnily enough, when we got the mum back into the cage up in the mountains, we found that she was acting rather peculiarly and went into her den and didn't come out. And we thought, oh, she's ill. But then we found very quickly that she'd actually had 2 bear cubs and was a wonderful mum. And so we actually, just let them grow naturally. And she was a very good mum, and we were able to release them at the same time, which was all, really, really, perfect plan for us. The main idea of the whole project is to try and bring those animals on to a state where they can be healthy enough to release back into the wild and be part of the biodiversity of Armenia, which is something that we're all very keen to do. Next. So now we've expanded this rescue center, and you can see on the left-hand side the little grey roof that was the original building. And now we've built lots of external enclosures, each have swimming pools. This all looks very dry, but this is obviously later in the year. But in spring, there's long grass growing in all of the enclosures. And we are in the process right now of looking for another 10 hectares, about 25 acres of land that we can actually build a much bigger center very close to this one, so that we can have the veterinary facilities and the storage facilities for food and all the other things that we can use. But basically that will give us enough land to rescue all the bears and get them, either much happier life where they will spend in the center, or hopefully we'll be able to release them back into the wild. Next one. And here's a bear that we really are desperate to rescue now. This is Bo, who's in a little enclosure in the middle of a small woodland up on a hill, and is looking out and just can see the wild trees and the wild countryside all around him, but can't actually get out and enjoy it. So we have a campaign now. Ruben's working very hard to try and get Bo released, and we're hoping that soon we will be able to get them out and put into into the rescue center on the road to freedom. So that's something that we're really keen to do. Next. Just some more slides of Bo there. So where your donations will go, obviously, you know, $25 could provide food for rescue bear for a week. There's $50 there, life-saving medical care. If you go up to $450, we can rescue bear for a month. We can actually care for that bear. And then $500 provide, you know, vital health screening for a bear. Everything we do is actually very veterinary based, and we give these animals the best possible care while they're with us. And one of the problems we've had, of course, is the teeth get very badly damaged, which we'll cover in a minute. 5,000 could fund the rescue center for some time. So now we're in a situation where we are looking to stop all the poaching of bears, you know, in Armenia, and we have this amazing animation that we've started to actually release now to break the cage, so that we can actually take all those bears, you know, out of the cages. So play the video.
The heartbreaking story told in this animation is true. Across Armenia, beautiful brown bears are being poached from the wild and kept in tiny, filthy cages. With our Armenian partners, we are on a mission to rescue every last bear, but we need your support. Sign the petition now and help us end this cruelty.
So thank you very much. That concludes my little talk, but I'd just like to say that that's a hard-hitting video. We know that, but we hope that it gets across. It encapsulates everything that we're trying to stop. So really, we hope that it will actually, you know, ask people to actually get involved with the campaign. Of course, we need money to be able to actually keep the pressure on the government. We ask you to sign the petition, which will actually help us put pressure there. We'd like you to either adopt an animal, which will help help the money come in. Share the petition with as many people as you can, and hopefully we can go on to, you know, rescue every one of those bears left in Armenia. Thank you, Liz.
I think too, Alan, when you see the real video clips at the end of those bears whom we know by name as Peter and Alfie and Rosie, and we see the conditions that they were being kept in. And I always remember Ruben saying to me that he has seen far, far worse than the ones that we've seen. So really these poor bears, they're in desperate need of our help. And we're in desperate need of as much help as we can get, so that together with FPWC, we can really bring this horrible cruelty and neglect to an end. So I'd like to ask you now, Ruben, if you would tell us a bit more from your position in Armenia on the ground about the project and how things are going for you.
Sure. Thank you very much also for organizing these live interviews and telling about our story with bears. I think we didn't mention that we rescued already more than 30 bears from different places like gas stations, restaurants, even private backyards where there were no reason to keep that animal in a very small cage on a chain. But what was really very hard and still very hard to persuade these people that they voluntarily give the bears to the better place, which will be a right place and right thing to do. And that's why I want to thank, first of all, that there was this opportunity working with International Animal Rescue, because without their support, there was no any possibility to do such a large project. And besides, FPWC was also standing very strongly environmental agency, the state environmental agency. Also, we have a MOU with the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of also Emergency, which always supported us in all rescues, starting from the one which was Riverside, and even private people, sometimes even police were involved, because this was not really easy tasks to persuade the people and owners, because this is kind of, I think the issue comes from even from Soviet, after the Soviet collapse, where many borders, not only physically, there was a war, as you know, and still there is a war, and people somehow move these borders, also inner borders, what is allowed and not allowed to do. And after the war, these borders didn't came back. So people started to hunt on a red listed species. People started to not value what we have, because Armenia is also known as a high biodiversity hotspot. And the species we have, I think European countries would only dream to have even half of it. So I think with this big rescue and breaking the cage campaign, we will succeed to rescue all the bears, which are popping up every day from different places, from different owners, restaurants, private people who we never even have in our lists. Just recently, 2 days ago, we found that there is one small bear in one of the villages that we are working now with the owner to make him understand that there is a better place and the right place for these bears, so they have no future there. So this gives us hope. And also, I'm very positive with the current government because they are keen on listening to our story. They are keen on even supporting us. And with this new perspective, I do hope that animal welfare issue concerning the bears will be solved in Armenia. But this is not only the animal welfare issue, but also becoming in some point a conservation issue, because if one continues just this kind of behavior, at the end in our wildlife, the species are extinct. This is our task as a conservation organization to stop in the right time and not allowing to losing some species and having such problems like with bears now. In general, I think the combination of having a sanctuary and choosing small caps which are still available to release is a very special one, even in the world. I think we were one of the first who tried this in a very scientific basis. And I do hope that we are going to continue on cooperation with state agencies, Institute of Zoology, for example, Ministry of Environment, state agencies, environmental, because this is a very important also a project to show the world that it is possible, and reintroduction and to the wildlife is most amazing thing, because there is some point where the animals in red list after extinctions is not possible anymore to recover, and this is where comes also the reintroduction and release part. So in the picture you see these nice pools which were supported also by International Animal Rescue, and you see how they enjoy. So part of the heavy task of FPWC team were the bears which were really very stressed, under stressed, and were in a small cages, and after a while they got stereotypical behavior. Through these enrichments and through these plays and games, we could manage even to reach in a point that from 20 bears now in our sanctuary, 18 bears have the hibernation, winter hibernation, which is a sign that everything what we have done is in the right direction, and bears getting back their normal behavior as in nature, which is also an indication that the place, the program we have for the bears, and the food, nutrition, and all the treatment which we have done so far. I remember that there was also even a joke that in a village where very often International Animal Rescue brought very good specialist dentists for treating the bears, and they were asking me if they can also come and using this opportunity for their teeth. So there was this rumor in the village that maybe there is an option for free charge of treating their teeth as well. So this all comes to say that the bears have a better place, better future, at least for the rest of their life. And the ones which are available to bring back, we will do everything that they go back to the nature. So, and I want to thank you also, International Animal Rescue Team, on the head of Alan Knight, that always motivates us, supports us. They were in our site in very hard times during the last 4 or 5 years, and we do hope that we will fulfill our task and rescue all the bears. Also with your support, who is looking now, because of your donations, it is possible to go ahead to have all facilities what we are needed to rescue all the bears. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruben. That was lovely to listen to, and also seeing those slides and photos of Armenia. I think every one of us who has been lucky enough to go to Armenia and see the project is just itching to go back again. And I think we would say to anyone who is thinking of going to Armenia when the travel restrictions are lifted, we would thoroughly recommend it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful country. The scenery is magnificent, and it's very special to go and see something you're a part of that is making such a difference to the wildlife. So as a travel destination, when the restrictions are lifted, I think we would all recommend it. And if you're looking for volunteers at that stage, I don't think you'll be short of of people. So that's fantastic. I just wanted to ask you, Ruben, from what you said, when you talk about the red list, are you talking about a red list in Armenia or the...
Yeah, it's our local red list.
Right.
And the bears are in red list in Armenia.
Okay, okay. That's good. So, Alan, you were just going to fill us in a bit more, no pun intended, the dental work with the bears, which is something International Animal Rescue has already got involved in India with the dancing bears. And could you just explain to people why the bears end up needing dental treatment when they come out of...
Yeah, so when we first started rescuing bears, crikey, when was that? 2002 in India. We rescued over 600 dancing bears, and one of the problems there is that they had the teeth knocked out with an iron bar, so the teeth were broken off at the gum. And when I first looked into the mouth of a bear, and I saw there were 4 canine teeth broken off and just holes, and I couldn't imagine the pain that bear was going through. So we put a team together of veterinary dentists, and I'm pleased to say we have 2 of those veterinary dentists on our trustees now. And basically we've had, teams go across, to Armenia. You can see a photograph there of Gerhard Puter, who's heading our team there, and one of our trustees who's a human dentist, my actual dentist, Paul Kassar, who's done a wonderful job of actually leading the way to using human techniques on animals. And we found that the bears in Armenia had similar problems where they are gnawing the cage, as you can see there. Their teeth break. We found all sorts of problems. So, we're in the process now of going through every one of the bears in the center to make sure that they've got a full, dental health record, and we make sure that nothing is left, so we have all the specialist equipment, the special anesthetic machines, the x-ray machines, and all of the equipment we need to do a completely amazing job. So hats off to those dentists.
Yes, thank you, Alan. We don't all know, but many of us know the pain of toothache, and it's something awful to live with. So it's fantastic to do that work. And it occurred to me that as we say our projects always try to find solutions for animals and people, perhaps we should be trying to tag on a clinic for the local people when we get back to Armenia with our dental team. Who knows?
Well, of course, Paul is a human dentist, so he's able to do that with no problem. And we have done all of the keepers at the Agra and Banagata bear sanctuaries down in in India. So that's something that I'm sure we can continue in Armenia.
So we've got some questions coming in. Thank you, everyone. Do keep putting them on the chat. I haven't got a name as to who's asked this, but I was curious to know, Ruben, what people think generally about keeping bears in Armenia. And the question is there any way to educate Armenian people to respect bears? Maybe setting up a program aimed at local schools so the adults of tomorrow won't indulge in the same cruelty and abuse towards bears. But I don't know whether, it's a minority, presumably.
We during these years, we identified that as a public in whole, there is a huge also negative attitude towards bears in captivity. And in some cases, I should say that only by the support of the public and media, we could succeed to rescue the bears. In some cases, many years ago, even only of that pressure from public and media, state agencies started to react. And the same issue was also with the animals in Gyumri, for example, as Alan started to his speech. So in that case, there is I am very confident that Armenian public and Armenian people are very much aware and strongly understands the issue. It's only the lack of the state funding and possibilities that there is no enough law enforcement in this stage to take the bears. So we fulfill this gap with our partner, International Animal Rescue, as a local organization, to cover that gap and give these bears in the right time the possibility to have better life. Of course, there is a need of law changes. There is a need of raising up the penalties, which is also our petition is about nowadays. And I'm very much confident that Armenian government will react on this petition. And after, you know, it's in all countries. I'm sure in UK, there are also many people, maybe they are not hunting or poaching in UK, but they use also their opportunities to go abroad to Africa or somewhere else. Even maybe they come to Armenia for their hunting and poaching. So in this sense, we are talking about some people who are really have these, let's say, confused borders, what they can allow themselves and not. And this can be solved only by the strong law enforcement and also rapidly following the cases till the end. And some people, of course, they should be punished because of their illegal actings.
Because it's a very different situation from India, where the calendars, they're known, who had the bears, used them to earn a living. Whereas in Armenia, I know people use them as an attraction at their resorts, but they're not depending on them for their livelihood, are they? Really?
No, in some cases, it's also very weird. Some people, for example, are emotionally very attached to these animals, as they say. They think they love the bear, they have communication, they have interaction with the bears. But of course, maybe lack of the knowledge, in this case, lack of also education, they are not really realizing that they are harming the bear. And it's not healthy, the food, what they are giving. It's not the right way of treating the bear. And of course, it's dangerous, not only for them, but for the public in general.
Thank you, Ruben. Alan, we've had a question here asking about whether all the bears are releasable, and I'm sure you'd like to talk about that first release you took part in. I know you can talk about the fact that they're not all releasable, but the ones that are.
So yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult situation that some bears just aren't releasable. They have psychological problems where they've been, you know, very badly treated while they're in captivity, and some are just too old. So we want to give as many of them the chance of release. And, you know, one of the interesting ones was that Dasha, the mum that came in from the river and had 2 cubs, and we released them together. But very quickly, because we had a collar on them, very quickly we found that Dasha wasn't doing very well, and Ruben was able to go out and observe, and there was quite a bad injury on the back of the bear, and that bear was then caught and brought back. And we do believe that it's really important that we actually look at, you know, the welfare of the bears. If they're not doing well in the wild, then we will be able to bring them back. And you know, we've looked after Dasha, and she's doing extremely well. In fact, what's the latest on Dasha, Ruben? Is she still doing well?
Yeah, she's great. She went to hibernation very well. She came out very healthy. She's very active, and of course, very lovely. Yeah.
Every bear will get a chance of release, and we basically have, you know, we're looking at the system, you know, very carefully. We're having to get the, I think it's the Zoological Institute involved now to do an impact assessment of where we release the bears. Of course, local farmers sometimes worry if a bear is released in their area. So Ruben has to do a huge amount of work making sure that the bears will be safe, and also explaining to the local people the impact of the bears in the area, and also providing, you know, a little bit of protection for their crops and for their, particularly their beehives and the honey that the bears will love. And I know that lots of work's been done. And one of the things that first attracted me to FPWC was they have a huge respect for their national heritage and their cultural assets, and basically are we very respectful for those. And that's something that we found in our work in India, but also in Indonesia with orangutans, is that, you know, you have to look after people welfare and animal welfare together. And I really do believe that FPWC share those beliefs, and it's something that we're very proud to be able to work together with them.
Yeah, just to add, Alan, that of course we would love to release all the bears, but it's not something which one should see from emotional side, but it's very scientific based approach, and it should be really very good assessed before to do anything, any interference to wildlife. Because one thing, when you take the bear from wilderness, of course it's life being, but it's not anymore part of the natural chain. So to bring back this animal to natural chain, it needs really a hard work, and one should be very, very careful in order not to harm the habitat, the nature of the wild nature, and also the bears who are living already there. So releasing is a science for itself, and we are working on that, and we succeeded, and we do hope that we are going to continue with the support of course, state agencies.
I'll just add one more point to that, is that of course we never know what we get when we rescue these bears, and we noticed that one of the bears on the rescue that you were at with Max and Minnie, that one of them was much larger than the other bear. And we actually, when we finally darted them and got them out, and Ruben did an examination, and I think you've discovered probably a Siberian bear, not a
Exactly.
brown bear. And of course, we can't release that bear back into the natural bear population in Armenia. So Max will be with us for a long time, but actually will be living a life so much better than the cage that you can see them in on the left-hand side there. So certainly we will definitely be working as hard as we can to release all the ones that are capable of being released.
So just a quick question from me on that then, Ruben. Do you have plans? Do you think you'll be able to release any bears this year, or are there any that are suitable for release, or have things
It's very much depending on work with state agencies and assessments that we are going to ask for their support. Because last years also they were, because of climate change, also because of the human activity, there were indicated many cases from like wild bear attacks to the gardens, to the livestock of villagers, beehives. And parallel to that, we supported, for example, last year, more than 10 electric fences facilities to protect their yards, to protect their beehives, all in all for more than 10 hectares they can secure for their livestock or beehives. So, but of course, there are many cases where the villagers are seeing losses of their livestock or beehives, and this is parallel to our wish to release the bears in that place is not anymore possible, of course, even though it will be scientifically approved that there is a possibility for that. So, and Armenia is not that big country, and we will see other opportunities and places with, of course, again, with the support of state agencies to understand. It's our big wish to continue the releases, but it's, again, we should mention that it's only possible for a certain period of time when the bears are very young and still not committed and not, let's say, used to have food from human beings, and they are able to be recovered in a way that they can react normally, naturally in wildlife, and they can survive there. This is a very, very important and very difficult task. So that's why I'm saying again that it's emotionally, of course, we all are very keen on releasing the bears into the wild back, but it's very pure scientific work behind and very hard work. And we should understand that if we do something wrong, any interference, wrong interference into, let's say, wildlife, it can be more dangerous as one can keep the bear in a big, large facility as we have here, and giving them a nice life.
It's a problem we find, I think, with all our projects, don't we, Alan, in terms of, you know, habitat loss and human-wildlife conflict. And we can only do what's best for the animals and the people, and ensuring that if they do go back, people and animals will be safe and so on. And as you say, Ruben, in some cases it's better and safer for that animal to have lifelong care in a beautiful sanctuary with plenty of space, as they do have. So I've been asked to remind people that they can donate, I believe, on the links on the YouTube website and description box. Had a question from someone asking what they can do to help, and I think that would be, please sign the petition, share the petition, to raise awareness. I think social media is a fantastic tool that we can use to our benefit at the moment. So I think that's what we would say to people, and of course to support us financially. And we did have a question asking what the cost of a bear rescue is. And I think we've answered that on our sheet, where we say $5,000 could fund the rescue of one bear. And the question also asks, what is involved in a bear rescue? Well, I know from the rescue I took part in that it's quite a massive operation, Ruben, and Alan too, you were there, in terms of the emergency services and getting people out to help, particularly with that bear, Max, Alan, who was not only a Siberian bear, I think, but he was a huge bear.
I think that's always the problem, trying to come up with, you know, the right people to do the job. And wonderfully, Ruben has got, you know, contacts throughout the world, really. And we had a wonderful vet called Iman from Iran who came in, and he was able to calculate what was required to anesthetize that huge bear. And he did it very quickly and very efficiently. It was only afterwards that I discovered he only had one dart and enough of the drug to have one chance of doing it. So obviously he had a bit of a problem himself. He was probably very, very nervous about the whole thing. But I'm delighted to say that the huge amount of organization behind the scenes with Ruben about just seems to happen. And I know that, you know, we have, you know, busloads of these emergency service people who are really there to look after things like earthquakes, when there's a natural disaster and they arrive and they start digging people out of houses and stuff. But on that particular rescue you were on, Liz, I think you remember, we had probably 20, they looked like firemen turning up with huge, great angle grinders and just starting to cut the cage down. And the whole thing was just incredible. But, you know, I mean, there must be, what, 50 or 60 people involved, Ruben, every time we do a rescue, with all the drivers, the lorries.
Sure, yeah. And it's from time to time, of course, it's very different. I remember the one, the riverside was also very, very difficult one because there was also a risk of the river and the water. There was case where the cage was too small, and we were afraid that after darting, the bear can go in this very small place and we cannot take him out from there. So from case to case is a different, and thanks also to all these agencies and people involved, we always could handle the situation. Of course, there are always a risk that something can happen wrong. We are not really secured from this. We should be open also with the public. And I do hope that in the future we are organized enough not to have such cases, but nevertheless, yeah, nobody can be secured from this.
And I think one of the really upsetting cases for me was to see that some of these cages had no doors. You know, they were literally welded into position, and those poor bears had never been out. Nobody had been in to clean them. So they were just living in the most horrendous conditions. And it's something that I never want to see again. So hopefully, you know, we can get more and more rescues happening, but that can only happen with the support of, you know, good people like, you know, in the audience today. So keep the money coming in.
It's really hard to imagine how those animals don't go mad when they've spent literally 10 years maybe in such a confined space, and there's nothing they can do that would be normal behavior for them if they were where they should be in the wild, roaming in the hills. There's absolutely nothing, you know, it's no surprise when they start pacing up and down and gnawing the bars or banging their heads. It's just impossible to imagine. It really is a form of torture to lock them up like that. It really is heartbreaking. So I think, you know, we're all very proud and privileged to be involved in this campaign and be able to make a difference to these bears. And when you see the ones in the video gambling in the pool, you can't help but smile to see the transformation in them and see them playing the way only happy, healthy animals do. So it's a delight. So lots more questions coming in. One is, which is one for you both in a way, what are your plans for 2021 and how many bears are still in need of rescuing? So Ruben, you would know best.
We don't have the exact number of the bears, as I told you before. Every day we can have a surprise and can listen from one or another that they saw a bear somewhere, which we never could imagine that there can be a bear, for example. And there are of course new bears coming up, as you see in an animation. There is always this risk by the poachers taking the cubs after the killing the bear, and these cubs ending up in some places where one needs maybe several months or even years to discover that there is a bear there. So approximately we were calculating another 30, maybe 40 between bears, but we never know. So it's something that we should work, I think, a couple of more years, not only by the rescue, but also strengthening the laws and penalties to be sure that there is no chance in the future to have such a picture again.
So I think we've got a very firm plan that we, our plan is to rescue all of the bears. And, with Ruben's support, we've been looking for land to buy. And I'm delighted to say that I finally think that Ruben's found some land, and he's just had to go through, changing the use of that land. And I'm hoping that very quickly we can actually, agree to purchase that land, and then there will be probably a 3-year program in 3 phases each year, where we will do phase 1 and then rescue some bears and put them in there, then phase 2 and phase 3. But at phase 3, all of the bears will have space to be rescued. So, we're very, very committed to it. Our trustees are committed, but of course, poor old Ruben's had the worst possible position because his country's been at war from November. The country went into a war situation, and that's delayed the whole project. So we would have probably been building now had it not been for that. But as Ruben said, we've supported FPWC through very, very difficult times, and I see that we will continue doing that. And we're hoping that we can give the green light for phase 1, shortly. So, watch this space.
Another question we've had asks, is there a prison sentence for the people who abuse these animals so that the bears get justice? And I think the answer to that, Ruben, is no, because the law is...
it's not, let's say, complete. There is gaps in the law, and that's why we need also to work on that, and we are working on that. We hired even specialists to help us, and as I told you, we are very lucky that the current government is keen on listening, and they are also willing to have the need changes, and also going to also parliament and making new laws if it's necessary. And I do hope that after this campaign and petition, we will be able to change the penalties, at least for poaching a bear or taking a cub from a nature, from its mother. So these are the things we are very much confident that will happen this year and next year.
Also, I would like to say that, it's a small country, Armenia. I think the population's around 2 million, is it, Ruben?
3 million.
3 million.
About 3 million.
And we basically, everyone seems to know everybody. Certainly Ruben knows most people in any position within government. And I know that FPWC have been responsible for producing some very good animal welfare law legislation, which is going through the House now. And that will give the animals a lot better chance of not suffering. So there's a lot happening, and it all seems to be happening at the same time. But that's something that I'm really impressed. With Ruben and his team, they just get on and do things no matter how hard it gets.
Just to clarify, one question we haven't answered is someone has asked if we're rescuing bile bears, which I can answer certainly no. I mean, they're in China and Vietnam, and there are groups doing great work to rescue them, but these bears are in cages for attracting people, or because people like to keep them as status symbols or exhibits, and so on. So no, not the bile bears. And sadly, the other question is, have they stopped doing that? And sadly, the answer to that is no. I think we know we work closely with the Animals Asia Foundation, and they're working really hard on that issue, but these things don't get stopped overnight, do they? So, but I think, I've always known at International Animal Rescue that with Alan at the helm, that we're in these projects for the long haul, and we're not about to give up on this one. And as Alan says, we're hoping to rescue all those bears and see the expansion of the sanctuary. So please, if you can, as the ghastly saying goes, every little helps. So please make a donation, sign the petition, share the petition, share the video, yes, please give what you can, because it's a really fantastic project. And on that note, I've been asked to thank Elisabetta Bello, someone called Philly Kay, who is familiar to all of us, International Animal Rescue, as a member of the team. Thank you very much, Philly. And someone called MC Garabay. Thank you very much for your donations. And Anon has made a $50 donation. So Anon, if you know who you are, thank you so much for your donation. We really appreciate it. And just to say from me again that I can absolutely vouch for the wonderful work that's been done for these bears. And if you're curious about it, then wait for the travel restrictions to be lifted and come and take a look. So Alan, do you want to just round up? I think we've exhausted our time. Questions?
Yeah, well, thank you everybody for taking the time this evening to watch this, this little question and answer session. I hope we've answered some of your questions. I am really positive that this project will go to its fruition and all those bears will be, rescued. I'm absolutely delighted to work with Ruben and his team. They're a professional bunch and we get on so well. It's just so hard when we have a pandemic. We haven't traveled for, over a year now, but I'm itching to get back out to Armenia. I'm having my second jab next month. So be prepared to accept me back in the country, Ruben. And please, everybody, do what you can, no matter how small, to help us. And with your help and your support, we will actually make this project a success. And I'm delighted to be involved with it. So thank you very much indeed for watching. And keep the money coming in, please.
One small thing we haven't mentioned is that if you're buying gifts for your family or even for yourself, it's possible to virtually adopt Max, who is the delightful big bear, absolute beautiful, magnificent bear. And we offer an adoption of Max so that you can receive a photo, a certificate, and regular updates on what he's getting up to at the sanctuary. So that's a lovely way to support the project too.
And finally, if you are thinking of taking a holiday once we're allowed to travel again, I would strongly recommend that you contact Ruben's organization. They have a fantastic eco lodge, which is right next to the bear sanctuary, which is a delight to actually stay in. Very high quality food, very high quality accommodation in the most spectacular mountainous region. I can't, I was amazed when I first went there. So really, do take your time to have a look where it is. And I know that Ruben can give you a fantastic, experience there. So, please have a look at it, and I'm sure you'll love the experience. Thank you very much indeed.
I just wanted to mention also, Alan, that if anybody wants to volunteer in our center, so we have a really very nice accommodation also, and all necessary facilities that one can feel himself really very good and enjoying the time by helping the bears, participating in enrichments, and having lovely time to see Armenia as I told you, it's a paradise for wildlife. Thank you very much.
I think you'll have a waiting list for that, Ruben. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I think we have. So thank you.